welcome everyone to another Saturday Night Live. My name is Peter Driver and we're here on Biscari Fly. So as you can see, we're not a device against night. Another different style of a show for you tonight, folks. Tonight we're going to be joined by the one and only Keith Mc Donnell from Dublin, who is from Impact Fly Fishing, streamer specialist up there in Dublin. Keith's renowned around the country, or around the world even, for his effectiveness on streamer fishing. Hope everyone's keeping well. Hope everyone's having a good week. How you doing, James Hope, Brendan Spillane, Aidan Gill, Maria's on there, Robbie Berry, Andrew's on there. I hope everybody's keeping well. Everyone's had a good week. Brendan Spillane, Aidan Gill, Impact Soft is on there from Italy. Nice to see you guys. Paul Burke and Robert Flaherty. Hope everyone's keeping well. What a different show we have for you tonight, folks. So tonight we're going to be joining live in a few moments up to Dublin. You're going to see myself and Keith on the screen, and we're going to be talking about streamer fishing. Not only how to be productive at streamer fishing, but we're going to look more at streamer fly design. Okay, we're going to look at the weights, the hooks, colours, using materials, the practical sense to fly tying and fly design when it comes to streamers. And this is applicable not just for streamer flies, but indeed all flies, lock flies, river flies. You know, why do we use materials? What materials can be effective, and the rationale behind putting those things on a hook? And what are we trying to imitate? What kind of movements are we trying to achieve from our flies? So we're going to spend the evening looking at that kind of stuff. It is a question and answer session as well, so please, if you do have any questions for myself or Keith, you can throw it up there in the comments box. How you doing, John Ditch, Brian Kennedy, Colin's on with us there as well. Throw it up in the comments box, and myself and Keith will get to your questions as best we can. Dylan, how you doing, Dylan? Hope everyone's good over there in the Welsh Tea. So do, by all means, fire any questions you want. As Dave is going to be along with his trivia quiz during the show, and Keith has kindly put up a fabulous prize there, as you can see on the screen. A lovely selection there from Impact Fly Fishing, his business. He's got a spool of excellent tippet, he's got some leaders, and a selection of his lovely three streamers there. So for whoever wins the prize tonight, that will be sent out. Dave will be along with the trivia quiz throughout the show, so don't forget to watch. Watch the comment section there for Dave coming on, and as usual, don't forget to hit that share button, folks. Hit that share button there and get a few people on here. So we're going to head over to Dublin now. I got a bit of clicking to do tonight as well, folks. We got a slideshow going as well, so bear with me. If anything queer happens, you know, it is live. We can't take it back. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and remember, if you've got any questions, shoot them across. So we'll head across there now to Keith. And how you doing, Keith? You're very welcome to the show tonight.
Hello, Peter. Thanks.
Great to have you back on with us. Great to have you back on with us, Keith, again. And thanks a million. Really appreciate you giving up your time on a Saturday night to come on here and share your vast experience and knowledge on tying streamers and fishing streamers. I suppose before we get into the crux of the, Keith, how was last season for you? How was things? You had a big year last year since we met you last.
It was patchy. You know, I like having a drop of water in the river with sustained low water, and you know that proves tricky for a streamer angler. But look, I got some fish and I was happy. Yeah, overall it was an okay season with all things considered. The pandemic and missing part of the season and all that sort of stuff. You know?
Right. And of course, you had a
busy
season with
getting out fishing, you know.
You had a busy season with the launch of the new business. Since last time we met you, it was only in the pipeline and in its infancy. But since then, Impact Fly Fishing has been launched. Great to see another Irish business get into the fly fishing game. How has things been working out for you?
Great. I mean, obviously, it was a big challenge to try and get something off the ground during COVID. Even opening the bank account, you know, took months.
Yeah.
It was really, you know, everything was a challenge. So in the end, we launched in August, you know, near the end of the fishing season. But we actually got a great response. It was really encouraging. And yeah, look, we're working away. As you know, there's an awful lot of work involved. My business partner Mick, he's got great skills in terms of the business side of things and finances and actually getting orders out, and that leaves me to, you know, do the nice bits, the creative bits with flies and different products that we're going to launch. So it's gone well so far, and we'll just keep growing it and building it, hopefully.
Brilliant. It was great to see,
I'm delighted.
a website designed or a company designed Um, specifically for streamer fishing. It's great to see it, like, that there is someone out there
Yeah,
with your guys' experience to really, to share that information with people and designs and stuff like that, and it's fantastic.
yeah, it's great to be able to share it all and to portray it the way we want to, because it's a beautiful pastime we have, and to be able to put that across, we put a lot of time and effort into the website and the photos and the content, and we'll continue to do that. And yeah, look, it's just a labour of love, and it's good
Fantastic.
fun.
Cool. Well, on to that topic of the night. We had a chat about it during the week, and we said, what will we do? What will we do? Something a little bit different than what we did last year. Last year, you tied a great fly, and we talked a lot about the approaches to streamer fishing and stuff like that. And you mentioned that this idea of fly design, streamer fly design, and it was brilliant when we talked about it. There was an awful lot of kind of different areas we spoke about in relation to streamer fishing. I know you've sent over a bit of a slideshow, and I have it here, and I can click away through it whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
But like, fly design, how important is it, Keith, to have
Yeah,
a
it's
good
really
understanding of
important.
it? Like,
Yeah. Sorry, there was a little bit of feedback. It's really important with all flies, obviously, but you know, if you look at pictures of streamers, very often people would think you're just throwing a load of material at a hook and making a big bulky looking thing, but there's an awful lot to it. There's a reason that every component that goes into the fly is there. It's there for a reason. It's not just to build a big bulky shape. So from the tail to the hooks to the head design to the materials they use, keeling the flies, we get into it all in depth. But it's interesting stuff, and hopefully it'll help people out if they're going looking to tie flies themselves, or they want to go and buy flies to know what to look out for.
well, absolutely, and it's the same for nymph and lock style flies. It's the same for every discipline of fly tying. I think fly design is something, and everyone's becoming a creator, of course, and it's great to see so many people creating all these magnificent designs. Around flies in general. But there has to be a rationale there. There has to be some kind of a
Yeah,
reason why, and just in general to have a good understanding of, if I put in this particular piece of material, how is this going to affect how is this going to affect how my fly is going to swim, or affect how the trout are going to see it, or its articulation, or whatever rationale reason behind you have putting those materials. It is an important sort of thing to be aware of
100%.
when you're
Yeah,
putting any materials on any hook for whatever reason you're trying to imitate or discipline of
yeah.
fishing you're doing. So yeah, it's definitely something, an area that's important. Well, sure, I'll start here on this first slide, and we'll.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I suppose we talked about this as well. When did kind of streamer fishing in Ireland? Some people would say it's relatively new, as regards this using big flies for river caught big trout. But when we were talking, you came up with this little gem here. Um,
Yeah, so I had this book uh, printed in 1962, Brown Trout Fishing in Ireland, and it was compiled by the Inland Fisheries Trust, which were the predecessor to the Fisheries Board, and Fáilte Ireland were involved too. But um, it mentions streamer fishing, which I thought was fantastic. So I'll
right,
just read
back in
the
'62.
yeah. So it says. Streamer flies can be good in rivers, fished with a fly rod, and work so to give an attractive action. Elvers can be imitated either by a slender streamer pattern dressed with polar bear hair or white goat hair, or a pale cycle valve rubber run up on a rather large hook, after the manner of rubber eels used for pollock in salt water. Such lures should be fished on a swivel cast across and downstream, so they were swinging them. But I thought it was amazing. that's in print then, and then there's very little other references to big flies, to streamer flies for trout. This is specifically for our wild brown trout.
Right, right.
There's been lots of publications, but they focus essentially on our traditional wet flies and some dry flies. So
Right.
I just thought that was fantastic. But maybe some of the listeners have come across other stuff. Um, I'm at this since about 2004, and obviously influenced by the Americans and stuff I picked up in South America. Um, but it's been here, and I know there's references to it in the UK from the 1800s.
Right.
And possibly one of the earliest writings was it a treatise of fishing? I think they had, they described putting red wool on a hook and a couple of feathers, obviously, as some sort of a bait fish imitation. So it's
Yeah,
interesting that.
it is. Yeah, just see a couple of questions coming in there. Peter Wadding there from Wexford was asking, what was your most memorable catch last year, and also would you have many salmon on streamers? Jamie Conway was also wondering, are snake streamers and zonkers the same thing, or what's the difference? Which is a really good question. Um,
Well, let's do them one by one. So the most memorable one last year wasn't even the biggest fish. It was just it was late in the season from a really challenging river, and also very often I'm doing this on my own. And I was lucky to be with my pal Kieran O'Kelly, he's a good photographer. He was there armed with camera
right.
to take a picture. So it was great to get one because it's a difficult river. It was about 3.5 pounds, and just thrilling to get them. On the salmon, yeah, salmon will take the streamers, and it's really, moving the fly according to the conditions. With both trout and salmon, it tends to be where you get a good drop of water in the river, so you're trying to get an aggressive response. It can be very productive for salmon
Right.
in the right conditions.
There we go. Hope that.
So, you know, in your normal kind of fly water that people like, you can fish the fly a bit slower, swing it, but in higher water with a bigger fly, then you're going to move it back a little bit quicker. So the illusion of life is there that they're not getting too long to figure out that it's not the real thing, and they react to it. So you can get some
Yeah.
super takes
And
and some big fish too.
excellent. And on to
But
Jamie's question then in relation to the different types of streamers that are out there, zonkers, different snakes and stuff like that. Yeah, they're all kind of streamers effectively, aren't they? Like even big
yeah,
trout flies, like big lock style flies, can be to a certain
yeah,
extent class streamers. And I remember fishing in Czech Republic at World Championships, and some of the guys using lock style flies in the rivers and doing quite well for the fry chasers,
yeah.
and the stocky bashers. So it's
It's like we're talking about,
I'll be back to screen one
where
second.
does a wet fly stop and a streamer start? You know, the I tend to, for the most part, um, use articulated flies that pretty much around the 4 or 5 inch mark.
Okay.
Tends to be the size. We got into that in more detail, but anything that's an attractor or a bait fish, a forage fish, imitation, something that the fish are interested in, would be classed as a streamer.
Class the streamer. Yeah.
A big dabbler, I guess,
Yeah.
would imitate a bait fish. So,
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So moving on to the next kind of slide and stuff we prepared. So you have on here common mistakes with streamers when tying or buying. So what kind of stuff do you see that would be a flaw, not necessarily a badly tied fly, but more so a non-effective maybe style of tying or design.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for me slides to catch up. But uh, so one of the big things is like they're quite difficult to photograph, right? So very often when you see these things on the internet, they look like there's a huge amount of material on there, and that's not necessarily the case, you know.
Right.
So it's very easy to look at the stuff online and end up over dressing the fly considerably, you know, and it does, everything needs its own space, if you know what I mean. On the fly, it's got to have space to move and do its thing, you know. So if you pack in too much material, that can be, be detrimental. Um, so, um, yeah, I was talking about quality and cost, you know, the these flies take a long time to tie. You're talking,
Yeah.
you know, 20 to 40 minutes.
And a lot of material, of course, as well.
Particularly about these style of streamers that I've been interested in, the articulated streamers and the stuff that we sell. Um, so you've got to put the best into them. You've got to have really good hooks. You've got to make sure that the wire is right to join the two together, you know, using high quality feathers, because the effort that goes into them, you've got to have it all right. I put up a picture of stuff that I found online.
Right.
We're perhaps going a little backwards on this because we could look at the right thing first and then come at this. But if you look at those flies, right, the first thing is the hooks are way too small. The hooks are tiny, right?
Yeah.
They're poor quality hooks. You want, for the most part, to have a bigger front end on the fly and a tapering.
So tapering back.
So a teardrop type shape. You know, they're lumpy and looks like Edward Scissorhands had a go with them. You know,
Right.
yeah, and like you've got that zonker strip across the back, and then a big lump of marabou. You know, they're just, to me, they stand out as being poor quality.
Right. And they're just going to basically be ineffective for you know, really doing effective streamer fishing on rivers, like.
You need to have the stuff right. Now, at times you can throw anything in the water and something will have a go at it, but you know, really you want to focus on a quality fly. And you know, we sell nice flies. I'm not trying to push our wares necessarily. You know, there's plenty of great custom tires around that can do flies. You know, it's not rocket science, as you'd see. We'll get into it in more detail. I was saying a couple of other points, like you know, if you pick up a fly and you can rotate the dressing on the hook, forget about it. You know,
okay.
It's poorly done. You should not be able to rotate dressings, hooks, all that sort of stuff. And you know, if you're fishing an articulated fly, if that happens, then you can be absolutely sure that the join is not in properly. So if you're big,
well, that goes for every fly. It's not even just a streamer. Like that goes for every fly. If you pick up a fly and it's not attached, like it moves on the hook, it's the first cast or the first fish, and that's the end of the fly. Like so.
Yeah. Hooks are a massive thing. I put up a separate slide on that to discuss it because they're critical, because you know, we don't have an abundance of big trout, and when you get your shot and he pulls, you can't destroy it because of poor quality hooks. So I think been through a massive learning curve on hooks to get to, you know, where we are now. There's an awful lot more available. I mean, like I put A-Rex on that thing.
Which slide is that one on now?
Streamer specific
the next one.
hooks, which is amazing.
Yeah. I'll switch on to that slide if you want to continue on with hooks, because I suppose the hook is the foundation. There it is. There, the hook is the foundation of any good fly. Having a good hook is basically going to be the difference between catching and not catching an awful lot of time too, for sharpness, penetration, strength to hold those fish. And as you say, if you're going to get one big fish on an articulated stream or any kind of a hook, it's got to have
Yeah.
the capabilities of holding that fish.
So the hook speeds and the wire for the articulated streamer, right? So you've call it the chassis of the fly.
Right.
The TP 610, that's an Arex Predator hook, so a nice hook. NS 122, that's kind of a stinger style hook. And then the TP 650 is the one with the bent front on it, and we'll talk a bit more about that when we look at the actual fly patterns. It's a reason for the bent front end, because you can get a particular action out of the fly by tying deer hair and clipping it a certain way using that bend. It's very good. So we'll talk about that a bit more. F314, that's the European equivalent of the B10S stinger hook. Absolutely fantastic hook.
Yeah.
I use it most of the time. Just super sharp, and the wire is not too beefy on it, which is important. And anything that can assist you with hook penetration. The bigger trout have hard mouths, hard jaws. Getting the hook to penetrate is a challenge, and having the wide gape assists with that as well. Getting the hook home.
You want that point exposed really in a heavy dressing, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. You don't want the hook point buried in materials or to be obscured by the head, because the heads can be quite beefy, quite large on the front. So you need a hook point that's exposed.
Right, I get you.
And the partridge streamer or bomber, they're great hooks as well, very similar profile. But, a good hook, slightly longer.
What general size are you tying? What general size are you using, Keith?
Yeah, so in general, the Gamakatsu F314, the front hook could be a size 2, and you come down a size for the back for most patterns. And that just allows you a little bit more swim on the back of the fly, so that the back of the fly is moving. So for the join, then, it's nylon coated wire, 30 pounds. We discussed last year about really cinching that in and binding it down and backing it up with some super glue.
Right.
And craft beads to separate the two hooks.
Okay.
Their main function is to prevent the rear hook catching up on the front of the dress. You can't eliminate that entirely with articulated flies. It happens.
It's going to happen, of course. Yeah, when you got
it tends to happen more often if you shock the rod when you're casting. So to keep the casting stroke smooth, everything smooth,
right,
helps prevent that. But the beads really help an awful lot with that, just to prevent that, so it'll only hinge so far that it won't completely.
Okay, I get you. Yeah.
So that's two beads in general, sometimes three.
And as you say, that's the chassis of the fly. Then just flicking back there to where we kind of were. So then, advice on filling the box of streamers. Different types.
Would you mind if we?
Yeah.
If we go to just go back to the design slide, right? Because some people probably haven't come across the articulated streamer, so just to make it absolutely
the design
clear,
slide, which is
what we're talking about. I think it's number 3.
Okay.
There's a prefix of 3.
So it would be 1, 2, 3. That's the third one, is it? You're a little bit behind on the stroke now. So, push flies.
It's called design. But it's got a sketch on it.
Yeah, have it there. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, have it there now for you. So we can all see that there, the design. You have hook, tail, body, join, and beads, wing and head, and a sketch there. Um,
Yeah. So that's essentially, if you were tying the fly, you've got your hook, you've got a tail on the back of it for the most part. The body, joining the beads, you're going to repeat the body in general. You may have a wing um, and a head, and they all serve a purpose. So, for example, um, depending on what you want the fly to do, the wing could keel the fly, could keep the fly stable, upright in the water. So if you've got a marabou wing, the tail you could build depending on the material.
okay.
You might have rabbit strip in the back or a marabou, or even a couple of patterns I have are just feathers, a couple of feathers.
And when you're designing that fly, Keith, you're initially looking for the transition between the front hook and the back hook and the materials to be almost seamless. So it would portray a single fly or single hook as such, but yet there's a hinge inside. So you need your materials to marry back to the stuff that's on the back hook. Are you looking for that kind of effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to create something that appears as a single being or entity. It's the two hooks are useful to provide length, because if you use the old style classic streamer hooks that are 4 or 5x long shanks, sometimes even more, um, they're not the greatest thing for hooking fish. What we found is absolutely the vast majority of the time you end up hooking the fish on the front hook.
Right.
So
Okay.
occasionally you get a smaller fish that, your average trade might take the back hook, you might have a suck in the back of it, but most of the time they're broadside it and they're hooking on the front hook. So it makes sense to have a hook up front, um, and then you can provide length by having two hooks with the joins. The other advantage that comes from it is that it allows us a huge amount of scope to design flies around this hinging effect, because you can move the hooks will move independently.
Right.
So depending on how you dress the fly, what you put on the front and what you put on the back will create a particular type of action.
And that's the whole crux of tonight's show is that, talking about fly design. To design something like that, you have to have a thought process, or you have to put in a thought process. Quite in-depth thought process, and a real good understanding of materials and how they work together and how they work in sync together, to get that, to create that effect that you're looking for, don't you? You really got to have that good understanding of materials.
For sure. So if you want to move on to, I have slides with a few of the flies lying on the wooden
Yeah.
board.
Do you want to go doubles or singles?
The doubles, yeah.
Yeah.
We can start with whichever one. So they're categorized into a number of
Yeah, so we
different
got
types.
push flies there.
So push flies, I've called them push flies because they've got this beefy head on the front.
Right.
And the effect of that is when you are pulling it through the water, because it's got mass on the front, it's got to slow down quicker.
Okay.
And as a result of slowing down quicker, the back hook is following it, and you stop, and the back hook is going to kick. So you see the first one there, we call it the Merry Banger. If you're looking at it from there, it looks quite like Kelly Gallop's Dungeon. But there's there's some subtlety there. So Kelly had a couple of Marabou wings on the back of the fly, um, whereas this particular one has two mallard flank feathers on each hook over the back. And what that does is it cups water, so
Okay.
that fly is really influenced by current. It'll ride through current and flicker greatly
Of course,
because
because
those.
there's no dead weight there. If you put weight in a fly for a streamer, it can make it sit a bit dead in the water. So having no weight helps to catch all those microcurrents and be a little bit more mobile as such, isn't it?
Yeah. So, so that particular one has it has dumbbell eyes in the front, but it's essentially there's very little jig action created with it. It's that they're there to get that fly fishing quickly because with that deer hair head that's providing our push of water, we need to have we need to be able to get that fishing quickly. So the little bit of weight
Right.
on the front serves the purpose of as soon as the fly hits the water, it's going to come through and be fishing immediately. Um, so it's a really cool fly, that one. That's responsible for my biggest Irish trade so far.
What
That was
size
a
is
water
it?
trade of just over 7
Wow.
pounds. Um, the next one down is so that fly, call it the effing and blinding, a silly name, but it's
That's the olive fly there, the kind of
it
olive coloured fly in the middle we're talking about now, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, the olive one. So it's designed to have a profile, a decent profile. So when you pull that and stop it, the head stops and the fly can actually give the fish a quick flash of the side.
Okay.
So the fish sees a good beefy meal, you know, or what appears to be. So that's it's basically just got a synthetic wool head on the front to add that bulk. Again, we're using the dumbbell eyes, and then the um, the marabou. So marabou is a fantastic material in that you can fish it in slow water. So those big flats on the boyne in a flood, um, there, there's an awful lot of uniform current there. But when
Right.
you pull and stop the flow, that marabou will continue to move and look alive in slower water or water with you know a relatively
Yeah,
uniform
Marabou is it's a great
current.
material in any fly, in any even on lake fly. See, Dave is coming on with his question there now in a moment, folks. So keep an eye out on the stream for the question. Dave will be on with his question. I'm sure Dave will let us know who's the. We'll read out the question when he posts it up anyway. Yeah, but Marabou is it's a fantastic material to work with, isn't it? Like it's it's so light for one. It's it's
Yeah.
really mobile and it can be very effective on streamers.
So then the last one on that one is called the knick-knack. It's got again the wool head and the dumbbell eyes. It's got quite a bit of copper flash in it, and uh, really importantly, it's got um, two, four cock hackles in the tail. Um,
Right.
and the advantage of having those cock hackles is that you get a more flickering action at the
Rather
back
than using
than you
hen
would.
hackles, Keith, is it like it gives you that it's the cock, it's the stiffness of the
They,
cock hackle?
they're, they're cock hackles, so they're relatively stiff. They poke out straight on the back. I have a couple of colours in there just to give a little bit of a illusion of it. It's essentially a great brown trout imitation, a juvenile brown trout.
Okay, right.
It suits our water perfectly, and it's got those more subtle tones that sit into the coloured water, but a really, really good fly. So the three flies there, they all have a different purpose.
Right.
Uh, as I say, last one just a superb brown trout imitation because they eat their own. You know, I
Of
caught
course.
them and they coughed up, 6 or 8 inch trout.
We've
So
all seen it over the years. We've all seen it. So Dave is on there with his
yeah.
question. What is the maximum, talking about hook lengths, what is the maximum hook length allowed in FIPS Moosh rules? Is Dave's questions there, folks. Answer correct answer in tonight,
That's
Dave.
good.
We'll keep an eye on who's the correct answer, and they will win themselves a nice selection there from Impact Fly Fishing of streamers. But back to the streamers. So following on from the push flies, what's the next ones that you would have there, Keith?
So if you want to take the next one, the swim flies maybe, or the jig flies, either or.
We're on to look here now. Swim flies, yeah. Yeah, we got three very bushy looking swim flies there.
Yeah. So I it was breezy out in the garden there today, so the marabou is flying all over the place.
Right. And again, is
It, it
marabou is
goes to,
marabou kind of the main ingredient of the most of your streamers, Keith? Or is there times where zonkers or bucktail or anything like that when you're sitting down to design the fly? Is marabou always something that you're leaning towards?
no, not always, but quite a lot of them are marabou because it's so useful and versatile.
Right. Okay.
Zonker is excellent. Um, we have there's a zonker fly on the other slide and really, really effective as an articulated fly, both as a single fly, as you know, but an articulated fly also. And the one downside of rabbit is that it holds a lot of water. So when
Okay.
you're
Right.
going to cast it, it retains a lot of water.
So it's going to be
But,
much more difficult to cast
once you
than
design
marabou.
the fly, I mean, part of the design is that you want flies that you can cast. You have to be
Which
able
is
to cast them.
crucial when you've got something
I
that kind of length, like and possibility with quite a bit of weight on the head if you're using some kind of a head or something. But definitely if your body materials, you're saying fly design, if your body materials are soaking up a lot of water as well, it's going to be quite difficult to get that across
Yeah,
a long piece, a long distance across the river.
it has to be comfortable to be able to cast the flies. Otherwise, you just get tired and fed up. And I went through it all from putting big heavy jig heads. I have another slide up there with big jig heads and weighted scope and helmets, and they're a couple of grams each, and they take the fun out of it. They can be effective getting this really pronounced
Okay.
jig action, particularly for salmon. Salmon love that jig head action, and it's. I mean, you'd be better off casting them with a spinning rod. Some of them, the
Right.
heavier ones.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
I've designed ended up with sets of flies that um, are a compromise of everything: fishability and castability. Um, and as you say, a certain amount of weight is okay because you get that shuttlecock effect. Like the shuttlecock in badminton. A little
Yes.
bit of weight on the front. It actually assists with casting them. Because you've got this feather behind a weight. Um, so you do it right, it can actually be easier to cast with a little bit of weight on the head than a weightless fly. But these three swim flies are all weightless.
And where does
No,
the word swim fly come out of? What in relation, say, to push flies? When we're talking about swim flies. What's the difference between like what
so
classifies a push fly rather than a swim fly?
yeah, so the other flies with a little bit of weight, you're going to get more of an up down action. These guys are going to have more of a side to side and even more type of an action. So if you start with the one in the middle, this is got a wedge head, which is an incredible incredibly innovative bit of Flytying. So Tommy Lynch, a guy from Michigan, um, I think his dad is actually from County Clare. He's
Right.
amazing streamer guy. He's come up with so much stuff. Um, Really cool. But he came up with this drunken disorderly pattern, which has a wedge head, um, and it's just amazing. It looks crazy when you first fish it, and it just kicks all over the place. So for each pull, you can't predict which way the fly is going to go. Is it
And that
going to
wedge
go
head
up?
is
Is it
tied with deer hair. Is that? It's just a muddler head kind of deer hair in there, Keith.
so? If you imagine the lip of a Rapala,
Yeah.
you spin on your deer hair and then take a razor blade and slice it into a wedge shape or a shovel shape. Um, and
Right.
remember the bent hook we were talking about, the
Yeah.
Arex bent hook? So that's the purpose of the bent hook, is that you've got this
I get you. You get this
downward
kind of yeah.
shovel head. When, when you get that into the water pressure on the face of it can kick the fly. So you can get a really, really pronounced action. It'll turn the arse of the fly right around to the fish. You can
Right.
completely, it's like a rally car. So it's an incredible innovation. So
Wow.
we've
Yeah.
taken Tommy's design and just a smaller version of it. He got quite a lot of rabbit in it, and we've got this, again the feather tail, and it's a really excellent fly, Lester the night fly we call it, because with a focus on night fishing for brown trout and sea trout, to have a big fly that's going to make an awful commotion
Yes.
in the water, and yeah, so that's a really good one. The other one, yellow one, I mean, yellow is a fantastic color for brown trout. Um, and it's, you know, that deer hair head to push water, but
Yeah.
weightless in this case, with a very light, wispy tail, with a little bit of naiad to separate the feathers. So if you look at the above profile, there's quite a wide splay of the feathers in it, and a really bright body. So the purpose of the body is that, if you notice with most fish, they've got a brighter belly than their back,
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
so that the fly will have that. So yeah, look, there's a little bit of Marabou. It probably looks, because the wind is blowing, it probably looks like there's a lot more Marabou in there than there is. That's really quite a sparse fly, lovely, wispy
And you have rubber legs in
fly.
that there
And
as
the
well,
rubber leg
Keith. Yeah.
just give a bit of a sense of a lateral line, and a little bit of noise too. Like, I think what fish hear and sense is quite fascinating, and I'd love to know if there are more studies on it. The fish can hear quite a low frequency. It's
Right. Okay.
our ears can hear
Yes, I'd
20
often
hertz
talk
up
when we're
to
when we're
20
looking at
kilometers.
design, let's say designing lock style, or looking at lock style flies that go on a particular part of the cast. It'll often be asked, or I'd often get asked, or I'd be often thinking about tying noisy flies. That would be your top dropper, and basically
Yeah,
the idea of that fly is to act as an attractor to create noise in the water and get the fish's attention to take possibly the dropper or the
yeah,
point fly.
yeah, yeah. Because they really um, can't hear stuff, and their swim bladder is part of the thing as well. The swim bladder is possibly like an amplifier.
Right. Okay.
It's it's amazing. So yeah, having a bit of noise combined with the deer head and the legs, create a bit of a racket. The last one on the bottom, then again a weightless fly using a small plastic head the Flymen Fish Company make them.
What's that to
They're,
achieve?
they're just a little plastic head that sits over the hook eye, and you can fix your epoxy eyes onto them. But they do give a nice swimming action. Again, that lateral action they assist with. And you can see I've got quite a big wing on that to stabilize the flies. So that what you don't want them to do is roll over on their side or even rotate, so that wing assists with that. So they're the swim flies.
Right, so they're the ones that are really, those are the ones that are really going to articulate in the water, kind of, you know, that you're using your heads there to create action.
For sure. Yeah. So I've got about a 6 or 7 second delay for when
you have. Yeah, that's the joys of live shows. There's delays when we're using software and technology and stuff like that. It's part of life. So it's grand. We're doing it's so interesting, so intriguing. Like, you know, it's it's definitely, you know, even already, like, you know, I'm picking up on the thought process that goes into, and I know I do have a lot of thought process around the flies I tie, but definitely, you know, I'm picking up on things there straight away, and I'm thinking, God, you know, I wonder will that work on a lock style fly, a muddler head, maybe look at, you know, trimming the deer hair in a different way to create different actions. How would that, you know, affect lock style flies and stuff like that? So it's absolutely intriguing, the thought process that you put into your streamers and using the materials, and, you know, the practical sense to your fly tying, which is a big thing. You know, we said right from the start, it's not just about firing a heap of fluffy colour stuff onto a feather and just that's it, and that's going to work well for me. You've got to put a thought process into your fly tying, and it's, you know, it's really important to highlight that, especially for people that are getting into streamer fishing, because it is a really growing discipline. And, you know, that's crucial, or you can waste a hell of a lot of materials and a hell of a lot of money tying up a box of streamers that are not going to be effective. Brian Kennedy's on there with a bit of a question. Brian, is there a time of day that fish switch on that's more successful, or does it vary over the season or in different rivers? Cracking looking flies, by the way. So he wants to know, is there a time of day that you find most successful that fish will chase or attack those streamers, Keith?
It tends to be more conditions based. You know, that you've got. I'm really big on light conditions. You know, that you've got relatively low light in general. That's not to say that they won't take in on a really bright day, but, you know, the fishiest times are when you've got, you know, low cloud cover. The barometric pressure can certainly be a factor. I watch it a lot. So
right, you're getting very technical now.
A falling barometer, flat barometer. You know, when there's bad weather on the way, that can trigger them. When there's the very first rise in water, you know, when the river is going up, that can drive them absolutely nuts.
Because we often find, nymphing for trout, we'd often find that a rising river normally turns them off. You know, we won't be as successful. Where a dropping river on the nymphs is absolutely phenomenal for fishing.
It's just the first bit of the rise.
Okay.
If you get it right, then you're in with it.
And how much is all that then? How much is all those conditions? How much of a factor will they play when you're looking in the fly box and picking out something particular, and design wise, not, you know, what color as well, but like design wise as regards the type of streamer you're going to choose. You know, we see on the screen there now as well some lovely singles. Now they're more my style of the streamers I'd be using, in my experience. But how, like, you know, what, you know, when those conditions, different conditions, how much of an impact would that have on fly choice taking it out of the box?
Yeah, big time. It influences completely all the conditions. So those flies, the single flies, uh, they have a couple of functions. But in particular, they're good when the flood has gone off the river and you can offer just a little bit more subtlety, something that is just a little bit more blends in. You know, there's no point in dead low water, crystal clear, whacking your biggest, bulkiest fly into the pool because it just, the illusion of life isn't there. So if you can add a bit of subtlety with the smaller flies, then you know that's the approach. Um, so if I'm going to the river, um, you know the clarity and the light is a big factor. So often I the way I think about it is in terms of the silhouette of the fly against its background, be it the sky or the riverbed. Um, Often you'll choose something that just will either be at layering contrast or will blend in, depending on how it looks to you in the water. And you build up a sense of it by, you'll put a fly in the water and give it a tug and say, no, that's not for now. And you try the opposite. So if I've got a bright yellow one on, I might go for a dark one. And just something that looks fishy and feels right. Current speed will dictate often whether I'll use Marabou or a feather tail or a zonker.
Okay.
And also it may influence um, the weight that I put on. So if I want to hit fast run at the head of the pool, I'm not going to put on a weightless swim fly because it's going to take that little fraction of a second longer to fish. Whereas if I throw on the conehead zonker, it's going to jump in immediately and be fishing, and you'd be amazed how that actual noise, it must be the noise of the fly hitting the water, will move the fish towards it immediately.
Absolutely.
And you can take almost in faster water.
Yeah. Well, we know as well, fishing this or even dry fly fishing in faster water, your impact can trigger the aggressive nature of the fish to attack it. So absolutely, I can understand that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So on those single flies, as I said, there's a couple of functions with them. They're a great place to start if you're starting out streamer fishing. That cone, the conehead woolly buggers, those colours, olive, you can't beat it. The skull head, and we've a couple of other variants. They're just real confidence patterns for somebody starting out. You can target the general population of trout in most rivers with them. You get results relatively quickly, and then you can build up the confidence.
And you get confidence in the design of like color combinations. It's not as expensive to try a couple of those and test out a few color combinations and stuff that might suit your own river, and then from there design that bigger articulated streamer, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And look, the big guys will have them too. Trout are trout. They're opportunists. They take a dry fly or a nymph some days. It's not that the big flies are the be all and end all to catch a big trout, but over the course of time, you're kind of stacking the odds in your favor with choosing something bigger that is going to, the chances of that fish taking an interest are much greater. So that's the reason for the bigger flies.
I get you. Yeah. See, Dave just has a question on there as well, wanting to know, David O'Donovan, do you use the Rapala knot or something similar when tying to mono?
Hey, David, yeah, absolutely. The Rapala knot is fantastic, and it just allows you that extra hinge to free up the fly to move. So, and if you think about it, it makes sense. If you cinch down a blood knot then you're creating a taut straight line down the first hook shank, whereas if you have a free swinging first hook shank, that's going to allow the fly much freer movement.
All right, that's a good point.
That's important, and particularly with those swim flies, so you get an extra bit of swim out of the fly for those. So yeah, I would always use the paddle knot, and it's a really great strong knot. No
It's
issues
one I
with
must
it.
have a look at actually.
There's a number.
I must actually start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a number of different loop knots you can use, but that's by far the simplest. It's really easy, quick knot to tie, and it's a strong knot.
So where do we move on from there? We're looking at some more, moving on to some heavier stuff, Keith. I'm going to bring up a slide there with
just to cover all those categories, and this is not a finite list of streamer categories. You know, you can break it down into all sorts of things, like you mentioned, booktails, and there's the classics, and there's all sorts of stuff. This is the stuff that I've just worked with over the years, and I find really effective.
Yeah, but again, through the whole design process that you've done and the experience that you have, these style of tying, the style of material, the color combinations, the use of the rubber legs, the Marabou, the different hackles, they play an important part in getting that streamer to be effective, don't they?
Yeah, for sure.
So here we got some heads and some
so these
bit more weight here, yeah.
So they've got the fish skull head on the front, medium-sized fish skull head. You can see the first one is essentially a double zonker wing on the back. It's got a hackled body and zonker wing on
Is
the
that
front.
wing attached like a snake fly, Keith? Is that attached to both hooks, or is there one coming over the top of the other?
No, one coming over the top of the other. They're split wings.
Okay.
When you see it in the water, it just looks like one unit.
Right.
That's the way it swims. Really, really effective pattern. Particularly, like we haven't separated lakes and rivers. The vast majority of my experiences with rivers, been doing a bit more lake fishing, and I find slimmer profile things like these zonkers tend to be more effective.
And are you rabbit, mink, squirrel, what?
Yeah, it's rabbit.
Rabbit.
Yeah, so natural rabbit. So that those fiscal heads are just fantastic. They're not too heavy, and they do give you a nice jigging.
They're very popular.
Action.
We have them here in the shop. They're very popular. They do go, they go quite quick. Yeah, they're a nice design. Easy enough to use too, Keith.
They're really easy to use. Yeah, so you tie the fly and little dab of super glue on the end of the fly when you've done your whip finish. Push the head on, make sure that you've got it lined up square, leave it to dry, and then you can drop another drop or two of super glue in through the front of the eye, and it just sucks into the dressing, and then it's fixed solid. They're really good. And then the old trick of, if you have a bit of hackle, just to push up through the hook eye to remove any excess super glue. Yeah. And then you're done. Some people will whip in front of the eye, but I think it looks nicer without it. I've never had one come off once they're super glued on well.
Sherry is on there, and she's wondering, what's your method, i.e. upstream or downstream? Or would that depend actually on what type of fly you're fishing?
Sorry, it was a little bit of delay, but the question was upstream, cross stream, or downstream, and the answer is absolutely upstream and a cross stream.
Right.
retrieving these flies, big flies, down and across. I'm sure that there is probably a small window when water is very coloured that you'd have an opportunity with them. For the most part, you know, the, pulling them across or up and across is way more effective. And your hookup ratio is much improved. You know, you can't, obviously, there are times when you've no choice but to send one downstream, but it tends to result in a poor hookup. But it's one of the hardest things with streamer fishing is to finish the deal, to make them stick to it. There's a number of reasons for that, and sometimes the fish is just being territorial and he's pushing it out of his way. You give it a whack or a slap at the tail or just push it out of the way and you don't connect with him. But other times, you know, if it's swinging downstream, they might have a bang on the tail. Or,
right, and Jim Euler's just on there and he's kind of wondering what kind of rod length and line weight for such heavy flies would you recommend?
Yeah. So anything from a 5 to a 7 weight is perfect. I tend to prefer a 7 weight most of the time. I'll drop back to a 6. But with good technique, you know, good casting technique is important.
Right.
As I say, the flies are designed to be as castable as possible. You know, if you were just starting out, you might struggle with, say, the bottle of gas, the one with the zonker strip and the head on it. But you know, some of the lighter weight ones, you know, you cast them no problem.
And what sort of tippet are you using as well, Keith? What sort of diameter tippet and the distance from the line to the fly?
Yeah, so I've designed a thick bud streamer leader, and I'm really thrilled with it. And again, I'm not trying to flog it, but I'm just.
Well, if you're using it, Keith, if you're using it, you designed it, I reckon it's probably worth buying anyway because, when in Rome.
So the beauty of this thing is it allows you to fish it a little bit longer. Now, having said that, the leaders are still relatively short, and you need them short in order to transmit that energy down the line, you know, to carry the fly.
So you're talking 6 foot?
So the 4 foot leader, it's 0.7 in the boat, and then we have a really tough Japanese fluorocarbon at 0.35 millimeters, and that is just, it's fantastic stuff.
That's heavy stuff.
You need that. You know, the flies are not cheap.
Oh, you want to be able to pull them back.
You don't want to lose them.
No, yeah.
So
Jerry's on there as well, and he's wondering, is there a specific kind of water that best suits streamer fishing? And then Kevin Maher follows that up with, what retrieve fast or slow, or does that depend on weight of fly and speed of flow or river? So 2 kind of questions there in relation to the type of water. What's the best kind of water suited for streamer fishing?
Yeah, moving water is my favourite to fish. You know, as I say, I've done some lake fishing, and it is effective. But moving water where, you know, the fly is moving through different currents, and you know, just water temperature plays a part in how fast you're going to fish through that. Well, the mood of the fish and the day and the fly that you're using also influence that. There's quite a lot of factors, but you know, we're heading into the start of our season now, and we've had a lot of rain, so the rivers are going to be topped up. You know, if the river is cold, it's going to be hard to get them to move early on. So you want to, they're not going to come herring across the pool after the fly, so you're going to have to fish a bit slower, just to give them a look at fly and make sure that they see it. So yeah, I mean the most fun way is when that you can move the fly at a reasonable clip, you know, strip, 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 strip.
Right, quite fast.
Yeah, you move the fly at a clip, and then you see the bow rate coming after it, and you burst it, and away you go. Like, that's the ideal way, but it's not. It's not always like that. You've got to vary the retrieve. Using the tip of the rod can be good as well because you can get really sharp dead stops with those heads, the beefier heads. So mixing up the retrieve, you know, you put the rod under your arm if you want, and do the roly poly. Even I'd say, you know, when they're in the mood, you couldn't move it fast enough.
And again, and a lot of kind of retrieve and just what you're talking about there to get that extra articulation into your fly or trigger the aggression of fish. That has to be kind of duplicate down into the fly design as well, wouldn't it not? Like to be, would you have certain designs of your flies that are specifically designed to, that I'm going to use that on, say, the roly poly. That fly is something that really is effective on a roly poly because of the design of the pattern.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, something like the rabbit strip, perfect for that.
Okay.
Or the genius. We saved the best for last. You see that black and silver one?
Yeah, it looks
That's
nice.
the best one I've ever done. It's just a lethal fly. That silver wing and flash, it moves like
yeah,
zombie.
I know the stuff. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah,
yeah. And it's just unreal, like the movement that you get in the water with that, and that's one that you can really yank it back. But you can also fish it slowly because you've got that kind of puffy.
Right. And James Murphy O'Connor's on there as well. He's one. Is it more successful when there's more fry in the water? Or does it matter?
I don't know. I think, if you look at some of these patterns, you've just got something big that's upsetting the fish. It's going to trigger an aggressive response. It's not always a feeding response.
Yes, and we get that quite a bit with nymphing as well. Actually, really good point. That that I reckon when we're nymphing and wading through rivers and pushing fish into that protective lie or getting in amongst them in a protective lie, that we're catching a higher percentage of fish out of aggressive kind of their aggressive nature rather than seen as a representation of food. So I think the point is that's very similar for streamer fishing, that it's not necessarily always a representation of food that they're attacking the streamer from. Trout are very aggressive, very territorial, and very protective of their space. And
certain times of the year, there's different stuff going on. I mean, when the salmon smolts are going down, that's certainly of interest to the trout. They'll target them, and again, you can fish something close enough, near enough, will do the job of white or silver, or whatever. Fly and target the guys who are eating the smalls. It'll be mighty fun. At other times, they're eating their own brothers and sisters.
Right.
Other bashing minnow on the bank. I had a fabulous experience on the Boyne last year where I was wrapping up to go home and I saw what I thought was a rising fish tight into the bank. I just dropped the fly off the end of the rod tip and the water exploded. And I was so shocked, and so was the fish. He was on. Not a huge fish, but a decent fish. And I walked a few meters further upstream, and there was another one at it, dropped the fly off the rod tip, bang, and got him. And they were obviously in just hitting minnows at the bank at dusk.
Yeah.
Just magic. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's why I'm doing it.
Sherry's back on with an interesting question there. Do you fish the lure single, or would you ever include a dropper or an attractor pattern on your setup when you're streamer fishing for trout?
Yeah, I've tried it, and I haven't found any benefit to it. So I've tried hedging my bets. you know, on days when you mightn't want to just target a really big fish, you might want to hedge your bets and have a small fly and a big fly. Um, a good way to do that is, you know, if you're doing hopper dropper and you tie off the bend of your link hammer, will you tie off the front hook on your articulated streamer, so a couple of feet off the front hook out to your trailing whatever woolly bugger or single hook stream. It works fine, but I've never found it to be a big benefit. I tend to stick to one or the other. You could, of course, have one hanging off the dropper above. Your leader is quite short, so you don't have a whole pile of room to separate them out. You know, the maximum leader would be 5-6 foot, so you don't have a whole lot to play with to separate flies out in that regard. So I hope that answers that one.
Yeah, I see Jerry's back on there again, Jerry Ho. I'm aware of the Kelly Gallup's work. Any other resources, books, websites, etc. you might recommend for tips and streamers? Well, Keith has his own website, Jerry, Impact Fly Fishing, of course, and he writes. You have a blog there as well, I think, Keith, haven't you? Where you do a bit of writing and stuff. But yeah, get in touch with Impact Soft or Impact Soft. They're the crowd that make the lovely knee pads and stuff we sell here. But Impact Fly Fishing up in Dublin, Jerry, you get all the information you need off those guys. Keith himself is the
and if you have specific questions, we're happy to answer. If you drop us an email or a message or anything at all, we're more than happy to help.
Yeah, I hope that helps, Jerry. So just another couple of slides coming up there. We've got an absolute beast of a looking yoke there. That's more like something I'd be jigging off the rocks for pollock rather than putting it into freshwater.
I was just putting that there to illustrate, you know, where it's got to come to somewhere sensible. That's not sensible, you know. That's a fly. So they had this approach to fishing for Huko, Danube salmon in Slovenia. I think they call it kind of fly spin, where they lob these big weighted heads. You know, they're a few grams in weight on the end of a fly rod. So you know you can go way out there, and as I said, we did play with jig heads a lot.
I was just going to ask you because Jamie Williams came on there and he said your run in for the micro streamers is the ticket, and it can be effective. All right, we've got some small little streamer patterns. They're very small, like you're talking size 10 and stuff like that, and they can produce fish. All right, yeah. Have you mucked around much with the jig heads?
Yeah, I mucked around a lot with the jig heads early on in it, and it's very effective, but it's not really fun. I definitely think like the lighter jig head stuff, as you say, perfect on the tight line setup where you're out in the river. There's definitely a future in that, and definitely an approach to fishing.
Right.
But like, I suppose the thing I wanted to get across here was, so they were taking this approach to fly fishing for these fish which are sitting on the bottom in really fast water. And with modern lines, you know, like I went fishing for them there recently, and it was with a 10 inches a second line, so an 11 or 12 fly rod.
Yeah.
But the fly itself is a weightless fly on a plastic tube. So you're using the line to get the fly down to the fish now, rather than these heavy weights on the fly. So the system is relatively comfortable to fish. You can cast it without too much bother, and the line is effective in getting the fly down to the fish, and the fly is more swimmy, it's more mobile, it's not influenced by the head. So yeah, that was the point of talking about that, and you know, that's where I've been. As I say, I went at the jig heads, went at the heavy scope and helmets, and came back because it's, while there are opportunities and places where they're useful as a kind of a mainstay approach to streamer fishing. I think this way is the most fun with this. You know, I'm using a sinking line, 3 to 6 inches. It's a second sinking line for the most part. The flies are not fishing overly deep.
Right.
You know, it gets through the surface film and you're fishing, and the fish can see it and feel it and
So
respond to it.
in tying up your streamers now, if someone's going to sit down now after tonight and tie up a box of streamers, you know, light, keep them mobile.
Yeah. Don't get sucked into trying to get them on the bottom. It's unnecessary. You know, you want to. See, the reason this thing appeals to me so much is that you see the fish respond to it most of the time.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you see the fish react to it. You know, if you have any of these bright flies on, you can see it swimming across the river.
Right.
And
it's exciting stuff, I'd say, yeah.
So it's really exciting and fun. Whereas if you're dredging the bottom with heavily weighted things, you have to watch out that you don't get a clip in the ear from a lead weight, and then you know you're getting tired and you're not seeing what's going on.
Yeah,
but look, eat your own money. You know, this is where I've ended up, and you know the articulated streamer stuff. That you know, there's quite a number of guys. We mentioned Kelly. We've mentioned Tommy Lynch, and there's a few other really good guys over there who've done a lot of work on this stuff too. And it's a really proven fun way to fish.
It looks like it, all right. We can see there some of the fish that you photographed. There's one little trout there with something that's half the size of his body, and then there's the exact purpose of why you fish streamers and big streamers is that beautiful wild brown trout there with that smaller trout sticking out of his mouth.
So I put the little guy in there just to illustrate a trout would have no problem eating something, and he will, that's half his body length.
Yeah.
Or a little bit more. Absolutely no problem. You know, so don't ever worry about the size. You can't fish big enough.
And you can see in that streamer that's sticking out that little fish, there's one thing that's really noticeable about that streamer is how light it is in the body when it's wet. You know?
Yeah.
It's very narrow, it's spiky, it's got a lot of attributes to it there, but it's you know, it's very light in the build.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's essentially just a double woolly bugger.
Right.
You know, two woolly bugger, a hinged woolly bugger. But yeah, he bursted. You know, and just don't worry about the size of stuff. Yeah, and that was one of the points of illustrating that back in the 60s, there were actually people fishing streamers here, but somewhere along the way, it went quiet.
It didn't really take the same developments that wet fly and nymphin and stuff took over the years.
Taking an interest again, yeah, and I think it's brilliant fun. It's absolutely brilliant fun. And you know, like with the way things are, unfortunately, we don't have hatches as abundant as they were. The fish are not coming to the surface as much. We don't have as much dry fly fishing.
No, of course.
This is a very visual way to fish.
Yeah. And just a few questions I wrote down here as we were kind of chatting stuff I wanted just to ask you a bit more about, Keith. You mentioned there the use of feathers. We've seen one or two little bits of patterns there of where you've used feathers for different purposes. What's, you know, I know when you're hackling something, you're talking about a cock hackle. But when you're using those feathers, going down the back of the fly or creating a shape to the fly, what hackles are you using there? What feathers?
It depends. Some of them are just cock hackles, and then others would be a webbier, what's called a flapping feather, which comes off the saddle of the bird. So it's just a webbier feather that will catch the current a little bit more. But the purpose of them is to just have that light flickering action in the back, not too beefy back end, and to create that teardrop profile.
Okay, get that teardrop shape back, yeah.
So look, don't go buying expensive capes to, dry fly capes or anything to do with, your Chinese or Indian capes. Absolutely perfect. They'll do the job. I have some capes from years ago, and I tend to just probably sacrilege throw in the dry fly, genetic dry fly and some of them, but it doesn't matter. So yeah.
See, Jamie Williams is on there again. Do you use a sinking line or a floating line for big streamers, Keith? And how long would your tip be? We've covered that one kind of already, a couple of foot long. But sinking line or floating line? Obviously, if you mentioned sinking.
It's sinking line, yeah.
Would there ever be occasion you'd switch to a floater?
Not personally.
Right.
Though I've friends who like to fish on a floater, and the advantage being that you can mend and manipulate the fly. So there are, look, it's not that there's reasons for using a floating line, but I prefer myself, like if it's lower water, I'll use an intermediate, a clear intermediate, and if there's a bit of water in the river, it's generally 6 inches a second sinking line. But I think any will work depending on what you're trying to do. So, the floating line could be useful if, say, for example, you cast to the far bank and you want to swim the fly down the far bank, and then you can throw downstream mend into it and swim the fly along the bank, vice versa upstream. You do a lot of mending with that, whereas once the line is in the water, you're committed to the direction the fly is going to travel within reason. I mean, you can still put some mends in, but you can obviously.
And when you're fishing a streamer, Keith, would you rather be in the water or on the bank?
Sorry, say again.
When you're streamer fishing, would you rather be in the river fishing the streamer or on the bank fishing the streamer?
Well, I'd always start from the bank.
Yeah, of course.
Because the big guys tend to be in relatively shallow water, so you fish right tight to the bank. Even water that doesn't look like it might hold a fish is worth fishing, because you just don't know. He can be wherever he wants to be. So I'll start on the bank. Obviously, I love being in the river because you just feel more connected to it, and being in it is a different experience. So if I have the option, then obviously I get in and wade. But some of the rivers I fish, they're tough, and we've drained the shite out of rivers in Ireland. So
that's a big thing, isn't it? Yeah, that's a big thing. Is the drainage of rivers? Yeah.
So that's a problem. So, the one good thing about bank fishing, say somewhere the likes of the Boyne, big wide river, you can get into a rhythm because you've got a lot of water to cover. So, you can get into a salmon-like rhythm of a step and a cast.
Yeah.
And that's quite good and quite effective. But on smaller rivers, you're choosing the cast, into the likely spots.
Yeah. So just a slide we just put up there, one of the last slides we'll be doing for tonight. But advice for filling a box of streamers, and of course the best advice would be just get in touch with Impact Fly Fishing and get them to fill the box for you and save yourself a whole load of time. That would be the best advice. But if someone wanted to take on the challenge or of tying themselves a box of streamers, Keith, what's the real, you have a couple of points wrote down there that must be considered as regards around your fly design if someone wants to come up with their own patterns. Because there's not a great, you get some stuff on Facebook, YouTube, or social media, Google searches as regards patterns for streamers, but there is no big bank of books there with effective patterns. So a lot of people are going to be doing their own designs. What's the kind of core principles there of designing that box of flies yourself?
Look, again, if you're starting out, make sure you get some of those single flies, the likes of the Conehead, woody buggers, and things like that, to give yourself confidence. You know, choose a range of colours and a range of flies that swim different. From each of those categories I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're all going to behave completely different in the river, which is something I definitely didn't focus on much before previous now. Is that I will go forward trying streamers for myself for the season coming. I was trying to really focus on the heads and how that fly is going to behave in the water.
I really believe it can make a difference. All of these things, be it, you're not just the color can be important. Absolutely, color change can make a difference, but the action of the fly in the water, can really influence things. Depending. So it's important to have flies that do different things.
Right.
And just have a range of different heads, different swim types. Stick in 4 or 5 inches in length is fine. Make sure that they're good quality flies and good quality hooks.
Hooks, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Don't skimp on the hooks.
These are not €2 or €3 flies. They're expensive to tie, and look, it's
a learning curve as well. It's about getting out there. Stick to your natural colours. We all know what the kind of natural bait stuff is in the rivers, or your olives. You mentioned that before. Your olives, we've seen a lot of your patterns there. While there's still a bit of colour explosion amongst it, but there's an awful lot of those natural kind of colours we use and see in every other fly. So you could even start with your traditional stuff and build patterns from there.
Yeah, and don't be scared of colour or flash. I mean, you can't have enough flash. Flash is brilliant. But if you see a fish turn, wounded fish turn, it reflects light. You're going to see flash.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and look, there isn't a colour that won't work.
Right.
There's no colours that are out of bounds. As you say, it's often good to, you might want an olive fly to blend in a little bit with the riverbed, or you might want a bright fly that's against a bright sky to just create that slight illusion of life, not too obvious. But throw a pink one at them. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, look, that's fantastic. We're gonna. It's getting near time now to call it tonight. And Jesus, what a minefield of information you are, or like the expanse of your knowledge around the flies and the dressings of them and stuff like that is fantastic. Keith, fair play to you, and huge thanks again for coming on to share.
Just an anorak.
Huh?
I love it though. I'm just an anorak. I absolutely love it though. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But look, if anybody has any questions or anything at all, they can give us a shout on streamerfishing.com or on Facebook or whatever.
Absolutely.
And
Eugene Fagan is just on there for question. Do you prefer sweep lines or straight sinkers? And Aidan Gill there, would you get much pike on the flies on the River Boyne?
no, funny enough,
No.
on
For
a
the pike
couple of
flies, of
tributaries
course.
of the Boyne, yeah, you would. There's some pike on some of the tributaries, but I haven't met many pike on the main channel of the Boyne. Though I understand further upstream that there are some, but yeah, other rivers, sometimes you want to wear trace on because you don't want to be leaving flies pike and get
Yeah, and then just in relation
bitten
to
off.
Eugene's question there, in relation to the lines, the sweep versus the straight, you mentioned before that you're doing a bit of still water fishing. Would you switch to sweeps much to help articulation, or
My absolute favorite line is Scientific Angler's Sonar Titan. I've been through them all, the airflow streamer specific lines, the Rio outbands, the Gentini lines,
right?
all of them. The Scientific Anglers, I'm not dunking anything for saying it, but they're absolutely fabulous line. So they got a
You can all hear that. The wife is getting worried about me. It's 10 o'clock. She come in to pour me a glass of wine. She's getting. Fair play to her. That's what you call good service, lads. See that training? I'm gonna get a right thump now after the show. I'd say.
get a click in the ear.
Yeah. Fair play to her. Thanks, honey. But right. So yeah. That's
So
yeah.
yeah, so that's it. The profile of that is the intermediate sync 3, sync 6. So
Okay.
it's yeah, very, very, very good line and very easy to fish with. Cast beautifully, really easy to cast.
Right. Brilliant. Well, look, Keith, we're going to let you go. Wife get these little hits there. It's time to spend a bit of Saturday night together. So, once again, look, at huge, massive thanks to Keith Mc Donnell there from Dublin. Don't forget, folks, his website is www.impactflyfishing.com. Am I correct, Keith?
That's it, yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Make sure you check it out.
Spearfishing.com or impactflyfishing.com.
You can also catch Keith on Facebook or most social media handles anyway, folks. Huge thanks. Great to have the likes of Keith in our country that come on and share information with us of that quality that gives us really good food for thought going forward. Hope everyone enjoyed Keith. Thanks very much, Keith, for coming on tonight.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the video. Just to say thanks to you for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk about it, and the new business, like you're running a business there yourself, and for us to be able to go on and chat.
It's just great to be able to work together. So that's it. It's a small community here in this country, and it's important for us to share and be open and talk to each other and be able to have a forum like this that people can come on and get access to someone like yourself with your wealth of information. And so we all appreciate it. We're all learning. It's a never ending. I always say that this is a never ending process of fly fishing, as you know yourself, Keith. No matter how much time you put into it, no matter how much energy, effort, or money, it never ends. Like it's an ongoing process of development, of gaining information, of trying to move the goalpost, trying to achieve different things, and there is no end goal there. So at least we can have a bit of fun and we can share a bit of information, work together, and it's great.
Super.
Yep. All right. Well, look, folks, we're going to say good night to you all. We're back next Saturday night for our second last live show because we're ending on Saturday the 12th. So next Saturday will be our second last show. We're going to be back on the Voice next week. We've got a cool show lined up for us next week. So don't forget, we'll be back here live at 8:30 p.m. next Saturday night. Don't forget, if you need any Flytying materials, check out www.pescarifly.com or feel free to give us a shout out anytime if you need any information on and it's all to do with fly fishing. So good night all. Good night, Keith in Dublin. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, and we will talk to you all next Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Thanks for watching, guys, girls. Bye bye.